I just want to thank you for that question, by the way. And I don't know if you want to put this in the thing or not, but I realize that I don't know if I can answer it. I don't know if I can actually talk about this at this point, but I know that it's been the movement of my whole life, actually. So it's very deep, very, very deep. And I don't know if I can articulate it, but it's, anyway, so I want to thank you for that. Okay. Actually, yeah, I will tell a story. Thanks. You know, I want to tell a story that happened when I was very young. Can I do that? I tell people that when I was 4 years old, I wanted to become a brain surgeon. And the reason I wanted to become a brain surgeon was that my mother had a very dear friend who died of a brain tumor when I was 4. And my mom was very sad. And I think I wanted to take away her sadness. And I thought, well, maybe if I had been a brain surgeon, I could have saved him. And I think that we want to take away our suffering and the suffering of others because that's our nature. That is our nature. And so we deeply, deeply care about ourselves and others. If we're open, if we're available to our humanity, we are tuned into that. Now, of course, we get so busy and we get so shut down and we get so compulsive that we lose touch with our feelings, and if we're not in touch with our feelings, we're certainly not in touch with anybody else's. So we lose what might be called compassion. We lose that. But once we start to open, once we start to cultivate that sensitivity of openness, we begin to see that we aren't separate from others, and we may begin to have empathic experience. We might be sitting with a friend and they're telling us of their difficulty, and we feel it. Maybe we cry while they cry. Do you know what I'm saying? That their tears move us to tears. Of course. Even going to the movies, people have this experience all the time. Whereas the great actors can evoke true emotion out of somebody listening and observing. Very powerful. Okay, that's proof that we're connected. And so, as we become more sensitive and begin to realize, as we open more and more and more, we begin to see we're not separate. Actually, we're really not separate. That's not a belief. That's an experience. And so when we're with other people and we're open and we've been cultivating a kind of clearinghouse of human experience in this kind of field here, you would say, or this becomes almost like a kind of recycling center, right? This body becomes a recycling center. And so I often, when I'm working with people, I feel their emotion moving through me, and it just channels through and it discharges it just becomes energy, it just becomes light. And so we become these kinds of, you might say, vast healing mechanisms. The term, I think in Buddhism was bodhisattva, but it's not some identity, it's not an identity at all. It's a description of a kind of interconnected, it's like all these interconnected recycling centers that are all functioning together. And so I think that's why now, today, there's clearly a sense that there's an evolution of consciousness happening. That's why Eckhart's book, The Power of Now, has become a bestseller, was a bestseller. And so many people, young people today, are actually arriving, very young people arriving who've awakened already. They still have their lives to live. They still have to figure out what to do this life. But they're already aware of awareness. It's incredible. So I think there is an evolution of the human species happening in consciousness. I mean, there's plenty of evidence of the opposite. There's plenty of evidence of the dark side, you might say, that's still present, operating. No question. But that's just unconsciousness. There's more and more consciousness happening. So as people begin to cultivate consciousness in themselves, they begin to facilitate it in others automatically. We're all transmitting. That's why I say there are no teachers and there are no students, really. That's not really it. It's really much more far out than that. Much more far out than that. Yes, we have these little setups called satsang and teachers and retreats and all. Those are just formal little environments. But the truth is, It's 24/7, all the time. And so as we begin to cultivate, as we become the light, even the Buddha said, be a light in the world. Why? Well, because light engenders light. It just does. And so that's like, if you start yawning, other people start yawning, right? Or if you start laughing, other people start laughing. Well, if you become enlightened, if you become awake, it starts activating other people. Now, if they're not ready for that, they may run away because they don't want to face their stuff. And I tell people only the ready show up. Because if you're not ready, you run out the door. Because if you're not ready, you're still seeking comfort and avoiding pain. That's just instinct operating. But once you're ready, then, as Rumi says, you walk into the fire. Because you know that when you walk into the fire, you end up in the sweet flowing water. And then you realize we're not separate. And of course you want to hang out and be with other people and love them and care about them. And that's why I often say we're in this together, we're all in this together. And we see on these retreats, particularly when people come back, how people are evolving. It's amazing. And people, you know what it's like. And people are, many people, they're just like, wow, how is this, look what's happening to people, right? It's not just my little experience. It sure isn't. My little enlightenment, my groovy little state of bliss. Now I'm happy. No. It's, sorry. We really are in this together for real. Anyway, it's quite wonderful. It's quite wonderful when we realize what this human experience really is.